In going through the comments on the channel yesterday, I came across a request from Drago7878. Hello, Professor. Can you make a response to these videos which defend evolution and say that anyone who does not believe in it and in abiogenesis is an idiot? In the video, they debunk the famous anti-evolutionist James Tour. Well, I thought there were dozens of websites promoting evolution, saying anyone who doesn't believe it is an idiot. I don't suppose this will be any different, I thought. I was wrong. The video was made by someone calling himself Professor Dave. He claims to be very good at explaining science, so I took a peek. I was astounded when I heard him say,
"It is easy to get peptides and nucleic acids. This is true. Again, we have machines that make them for us. That doesn't mean the technology isn't amazing. It means it has become a routine and trivial exercise for specialists in a well-equipped lab. You go up to the machine, load the cartridges of amino acids, make sure the solvent cans are full, dial in the sequence, and go home."
The video purports to be about abiogenesis, the evolution of life from non-life. Everything to do with evolution denies the input of intelligence, or the input of information. It has to. Its aim is to deny a creator. But this professor, of what I have no idea, is pointing to the building blocks of life being made in a computer-controlled machine, which required massive amounts of intelligence and information to create and to program. I wondered if he was making a joke, or if he was mentally challenged in some way. And then he went on to claim that it's perfectly valid for origin of life chemists to use purified chemicals for their experiments.
It is also totally irrelevant to bring up the fact that chemists buy reagents from commercial suppliers, as though this invalidates their work. When scientists are focusing on a very specific research problem, that's their focus. They don't have to synthesize all of their materials from scratch in order to investigate that one problem. That would be insane.
But in the next breath, he points out the reason why it is totally invalid.
Then, of course, there is the Miller-Urey experiment, which showed that amino acid formation on early Earth would have been no problem.
Miller and Urey got traces of molecules like alanine in a mass of tar. And in the tar, there were also monofunctional molecules like amines. Without some natural means of removing all the tar, there's no way for alanine or anything else to polymerize. And without some natural means of removing the monofunctional molecules, polymerization would stop dead in its tracks anyway. So, until a convincing way of purifying chemicals like alanine by purely natural means is shown to be possible, it's hard to see how evolutionists can justify using chemically pure reagents in origin of life simulations. Such purification takes a great deal of intelligence and information, and therefore can have no place in anything to do with evolution. The video then flashes through a large number of recent origin of life research papers. These are very interesting and give an idea of the progress made in origin of life theory. Our learned professor brings in interesting developments in condensation reactions in water under certain circumstances, the preferential production of monochiral molecules in certain mineral surfaces, and several other findings. He gives the impression that they prove lots of things conclusively, rather than admit that most of them cover plausible possibilities with some experimental justification. Now, this is all very interesting. It shows that progress has been made in understanding how it might have been possible for some of the materials used by living organisms to have come about naturally. But that is trivial in comparison with what's needed for the simplest possible form of life, as admitted by the origin of life theorists themselves. Such a simple life form does not exist, and it's never been shown that it could exist. But James Tour, the scientist that our learned professor is belittling and pouring scorn on, reads him a list of the things that the origin of life scientists have agreed must be absolutely essential for the simplest possible form of life as we know it.
Quote, DNA replication, repair, restriction, and modification. All those genes would need to be there, but not just those. It goes on. A basic transcription machinery, amino-acyl tRNA synthesis, tRNA maturation and modification, ribosomal proteins, ribosome function, maturation and modification, translation factors, RNA degradation, protein processing, folding and secretion, cellular division, transport, and energetic and intermediary metabolisms, glycolysis, proton motive force generation, pentose phosphate pathway, lipid metabolism, biosynthesis of nucleotides and cofactors. The authors of this paper are citing previous authors. He says, quote, the authors did not include rRNA or tRNA genes, and they recognized that the basic substrate transport machinery could not be clearly defined, even though this minimal cell would rely greatly on the import of several substrates, including all 20 amino acids, for which it had no biosynthetic ability. So even with these 206 genes prescribing that functionality, you'd need exogenous all 20 amino acids coming in because it doesn't have any way to make those because we brought it down to the bare minimum. That's what you would need to have the simplest functioning cell.
But our learned professor is not impressed at all. Just listen to his confident, scorn-filled response.
More of the same. He's talking about research that addresses modern DNA-based cells, while the first cells were almost certainly not DNA-based. We don't need any DNA-based genes or any DNA at all to get early life, so we don't need any enzymes that operate on DNA either.
Were you suitably impressed? The simplest life form did not need any DNA, RNA, enzymes, or anything like that. Wow! Have our clever scientists found some new form of life they never told us about? Presumably, there must be some sort of stunning evidence for it. Let's have a look at that next time. Thank you for joining me for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and press the bell so that you'll be notified as I release new movies. If you'd like to support this project, you're welcome to do so through Patreon. Find a link on my channel banner and in the description below.